Hi, I'm Bob Bunch, and this is my wife Betty, who is the B in BWI. The purpose of this production is to assist our vendors, our customers, and our employees in understanding the culture of BWI.
Bob and I are both from Oklahoma. He was from Spiro, Oklahoma, near Fort Smith, and I'm a Tulsa girl. I got to go to college at Oklahoma State. It was Oklahoma A&M then, and my mother had an insurance policy, $2,400 that she had saved and paid for to send me to college. I'm an only child, and but she didn't have to use it because I got a job right after I went off to school. This was in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and so she didn't use the $2,400, which came in very handy later.
My roots go back to eastern Oklahoma, a little place called Spiro in LeFlore County. My family was involved in truck farming. We grew all sorts of vegetables, and there were 7 of us, and in order to make a living, you really had to have a good work ethic, and I learned to work, and that work ethic has stuck with us, and I've been able to use it in the activity with BWI. My first job out of college was with Ferrymore Seed Company. I was assigned 3 states, Missouri, Arkansas, and Kansas. We lived in Springfield, and those days when you traveled 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and I soon found out that I was going to have either a new job or a new wife, because Betty was unhappy because I had been gone for 2 or 3 weeks, and she was unhappy when I came back because I had been gone that length of time. And that sort of got us to thinking what we wanted to do, what our future would be. And in my travels, I located a place in Texarkana that was for sale for almost for the money that we could get together, at least the down payment. And so thus we came to Texarkana and started out in business on October 20th, 1958.
We had saved $1,000 during our first year of marriage. And so we put that into it, and then remember the $2,400 that my mother had. We put that into the business, and then our landlord was very accommodating. He said, well, if you can't pay your rent this winter, you can wait and double up and pay it in the spring. So that's how we raised the funds to start a business, $2,400 from my mother and $1,000 on our own.
In the early days of the business, I worked the retail side. We did not actually start wholesaling until in the early 60s, but we did open a second location in the Oaklawn area in Texarkana, so we had 2 retail operations. And when the weather got bad and the business got slow, we looked for other things to keep us going, and that was our first. We bought a pet shop and incorporated it into our seed store, and that was our first, I guess our second acquisition. The seed store was the first, so this was the beginning of a long line of acquisitions and expansion in our business.
I think I mentioned I'm a teacher, and I thought I would start back teaching in January of that first year, but about that time I discovered I was expecting Robert, and in 1958 a teacher didn't have a job working if she was pregnant. So I went to work in our store, which was the first 45 years of working there.
Well, another thing that we did to get us going in the retail business, we lived out on a little farm. We had a chicken house, and so we took the roof off of it and put plastic over it and made it into a greenhouse. So we grew our own plants, and every morning when I went to work, I'd have a truckload of fresh plants. Well, that drew in the customers and gave us an advantage over our competitors.
During these years, we had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and they learned to help with the business too. I can remember when the boys had their first job, it was working in the greenhouse, and they put little pots inside of a flat and put dirt in it for a penny a flat, and so that was their first job. And they went all the way from that to helping in the store, sweeping the floor, carrying out fertilizer, and all those kind of things that were the basis for their interest in BWI. We learned a lot of interesting lessons during those years. The most memorable one was the contractor who came in and bought a squirrel monkey. And it was the cutest thing he'd ever seen. He loved it. And so he came back and he said, now, I have 7 workers working for me, and I want to give them each one of these monkeys for Christmas, so will you order them? I said, certainly, sir. So I ordered these 7 monkeys. Meantime, it got to be November and then December, and it was freezing and raining, and I never saw that man again. And there we were with 7 monkeys, and they ended up in the ceiling. They made nests on Bob's desk. They did everything you can imagine a monkey could do. Other than chaining them in a cage, there was no way to keep them in a cage. And that was our very first experience. Bob figured out how to get rid of them finally after we had asked the zoo we checked with a lot of different places where we could help dispose of all these monkeys, and no one wanted any squirrel monkeys, particularly in the winter. So Bob hatched the idea. He said, let me see what I can do. The next customer that comes in that would like to have one of these monkeys, I'm going to see what I can do. So this guy came in and he said, oh, well, that's the cutest monkey. If I had the money, I'd buy him. And Bob said, that's all right. If you have the money for a sack of monkey chow, I'll sell you this monkey on credit. And he did that 7 times, and I don't know how much money we collected, but we got rid of those monkeys. That was one of the most important lessons that we learned. The lesson was, don't sell animals on credit. If you sell a dog, it's really hard to collect for a dead dog, or to take one away from a crying child because they won't, the daddy can't pay for it. And so that was our first lesson that we learned. Don't sell animals on credit.
One of our experiences was with buying and selling coatimundis. One day a guy called me and he said, I'm traveling through Texarkana and I have this coatimundi. He caused me to wreck my car and I need to get rid of him. I'm in the hospital. And so I said, okay, bring him on in. I'll take him off your hands. Well, the first night he escaped from the cage. He has fingers like a person. He could unwire the cage and get out and he'd just get all over the store and crawl on up in the attic and whatever. So, but in the daytime he was very docile, and he loved women. And somebody come in and look at him, he'd just put his arms around them, and just such a friendly little thing. And so I sold him to a lady, and she took him home. And when since it was nocturnal at night, it climbed on and pulled down her curtains and just really gave her a lot of trouble. And so I said, okay, I'll take it back. And I took it back, and then in a few days somebody else bought it, and the same thing happened. It went wild at night. And then finally, the third time I sold it, there were 2 people that wanted it at the same time, and so I sold it to the third person. And when she called me, well, I said, we can't take it back, but I've got a name of a person that would like to have it. So this 4th person bought the coatimundi, and when she called me and said, I got to get the coatimundi back to you, I can't stand it, it's tearing up my house. I said, well, I'm sorry, I didn't sell it to you.
This was kind of in the early years after we had built the warehouse. I think it was just when we'd finished our corporate building, because we were proud of the landscaping there. And a snake from the pond back in back of the warehouse got into the warehouse, bit somebody, and we couldn't do anything. We couldn't have that. And so Bob, in his growing up years, had heard that and learned that snakes could be gotten rid of if you had pigs. And so he bought 3 little pigs, 2 females and a male. Not very much time passed, and we had 25 hogs. And they got out of the cage, out of the fences. We didn't have, I guess we didn't have a hog fence, but they were out and tearing up the landscaping. One even broke the window out of the warehouse door, looking at himself. And so we couldn't have these hogs all over. Bob was afraid they'd get in the street and everywhere else. So he came to the rescue again. He sold all these hogs, I think for $25 a piece, but he got rid of them all. and now we're out of the hog business for good. But of course, since then, he has had donkeys. He's had everything else out here, but the hogs are the most memorable, at least to me.
In the mid-'60s, we found out that the company I had worked for, Ferrymore Seed Company, was interested in working through distribution to sell their garden seed. So I immediately approached them. I said, well, I would like to be the distributor in an area of Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And they had a lot of faith in me for the work I had done when I was with them. And so we were granted the Ferrymore distributorship on garden seed, and soon thereafter we were able to pick up Wolf Oak Chemical and Greenlight. And my method of operation, I would go out and, well, at very first I would put some merchandise in my car that I thought was timely, and I would sell right out of my car. And as that picked up a little, I got a pickup truck, and I would haul merchandise and sell it and take orders for my next trip. And I soon outgrew that, and then I ended up with a gooseneck trailer behind my pickup, and I would develop a route, and I would have some merchandise on the truck that was extra that I could sell to people that needed something in a hurry, and I would deliver what I had taken orders for the previous week. So it was a very much of a win-win situation for me. By 1972, we were going pretty strong in the wholesale business, and we decided to sell our retail. So we took a partner in our retail, Gene Taylor. He owned 49% of it and had an agreement to buy the rest of it in 10 years, and which he did. So we exited the retail business and the pet business, and went totally into wholesaling, and we moved our business out here to Nash. When we started in the wholesale division, we had already built it while we were both retail and wholesale. We had expanded our territory, and we began to add more items to our line. In the beginning, we were just seed and retail lawn and garden supplies, and then we added the grower supplies along about that time, and began to expand into the farm stores, and even we're doing a little mass merchant business. So we were off and running pretty good. And by the time we decided in 1972 to divest ourselves of the retail and devote our full attention to wholesaling, and we moved out here to Nash, and we built a new building. We built a building 42,000 square feet. Well, we had just a little merchandise in the front. We didn't have any racking or anything. Everybody thought I had lost my mind that I had built such a big building. But it was shortly we added enough merchandise and added enough new lines that we were running out of room. Even after racking it and getting everything put away, we still had we began to run out of room, and we've added on, I think, 4 times since then to our warehouse.
2 of our first dealer shows were held in the Nash warehouse. We used Jiffy pots to make our booths, and strung crepe paper around and made sandwiches and cookies to serve.
I had a couple of rules that I've followed and still follow, and that was always do what you say you're going to do, if it takes the hair, hide, and all, and above all, be honest, and and upright in all your business dealings, and that is part of the culture that we have always had, and it still works for BWI.
And this 3rd rule is the customer's always right.
Well, a lot of times, of course, they would travel with me, and in the beginning, I would take them out on the road, and the new salespeople, and they would work with me, and sometimes I would work maybe straight through without lunch, and they thought that was rather unusual, and then usually tested up in eastern Oklahoma. I had a saying that if you can make it in Idabel, Broken Bow, Mena, you can make it anywhere in the world. So that was one of the places that we tried out our new salespeople. We became members of the National Lawn and Garden Wholesalers Association. We were probably the smallest people in that organization, and we gained a lot of information on good business practices, and we got to know our competitors, and we learned more than from any other place from that organization. And in future years, we joined more organizations, and it really gave us a good jump start and got us going in the wholesale business. And Betty and I kind of agreed in the beginning that if I'd be in charge of the selling and the collecting, and if she could be in purchasing and bookkeeping. So that's sort of how we divided the duties of the company, and it worked out all right. We worked together very in harmony for 45 years until Betty retired, and that came as a big shock to me. But anyway, we worked as a team and got along fine in business. In 1975, we computerized. We got one of the early IBM models, IBM 32, and we've gone every step along with them since. We had 34, 36, 38, the 400, and then there's many versions of the 400 since then. So we've been a loyal IBM customer for many, many years. And now we have, in our data processing, we have at least 6 people that are dedicated to the data processing department. And we have good software and good people to maintain their software. Maybe we could go down through a little history of how of some of the expansions that we've done over the years, and why we did those expansions. And I guess our first major out-of-town acquisition was Russell Heckle's Seed Company in Memphis, Tennessee in 1976. I had a friend that was my boss when I worked for Amore Seed Company. He wanted to have some action in the distribution business, so when we bought Russell Heckle, we allowed him to own 25% of it. So and he ran the Memphis location, and that worked out very well. And then in 1981, we decided down in Memphis we could not service Jackson, Mississippi too well, and we needed a location there. And we had a company there called Southern Seed that was winding down. They wanted to get out of the business, so we bought some of their land and some of the inventory, and some of their employees joined us, and so we were off and running in Jackson, Mississippi. And our next acquisition was in 1988 in Schulenburg, Texas. That's in South Texas. Out of Schulenburg, we serve Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and all the way into the valley. So, and the reason for that acquisition was that we had a supplier that Chevron Chemical Company said if you handle Fertilome, which we were handling Fertilome, you could not handle both lines, and many companies were pretty equally divided between the two lines, and they had to give it up, and that left an opening. We kept the Fertilome line, which was a wise decision for us, and so as these people gave up the VPG, we moved in our territory and started selling VPG plus a lot of other things. So that was the reason for operating in Schulenburg, or was the reason we got started there. And then in 1989, this is for the same reason, we opened a location in Dallas. The Dallas, we were already selling some stuff in Dallas, but the mentality of the Dallas customers was, how could a little firm in Texarkana service us big garden centers and various businesses in Dallas? So it was a psychological thing, but we opened there and have done very well. And in 1991, we reopened in Memphis, Tennessee. My partner in Memphis. He said he would like to have more of the action, so I sold him. I said, if you raise the money in cash, I will sell you the entire location in Memphis. And I thought I'd never hear any more from it. Well, I did. In about 6 months, he called and said, I've raised the money and I'm going to buy your interest. Well, he wanted to stay hooked to our computer system, and he did. But he had a lot of misfortunes come along, and he ended up, part of his employees left and opened up in competition with him, and then there was two companies, and neither one of them had the volume by itself to survive. So I bought them both and put them back together, and we re-entered the Memphis market in 1991. Up till then, the company had been run as separate corporations, and about long in the early 90s, we decided we needed an outside board of directors. We had grown to the point that the business had pretty much outgrown our expertise, so we got an outside board of directors, and that was one of their recommendations, that we pull the companies all together as one corporation, and that's why we now known as BWI Companies Inc. And we continued to expand. In 1993, we bought Camel Distributing Company in Springfield, Missouri, and I kind of had a special feeling for the Springfield area, since that's where we had lived when I worked for Ferrymore Seed, and it also gave us some northern territory that was kind of needed to round out our seasons. And then in 1996, we felt a need to work over toward the East Coast, and so that's why we opened up a company there near Greenville, Spartanburg area, and it is now a profitable part of our organization. And also in the same year, we decided that Florida, there were some opportunities there. In Florida, there were several distributors there, but none of them were diversified like we were. They were single dimension. They were either in the turf business, or they were in the seed business, or they were in the grower side business. Well, we bought about 5 companies, put them all together as one company, and made a very large and profitable organization out of in Apopka, Florida. We had our largest warehouse down in Apopka, Florida, and out of those acquisitions, we picked up a smaller business in Homestead, Florida, which is dedicated to growers, and it still operates there. And we have 5 locations that are specialty locations that people come in to pick up their merchandise. So we do some delivering out of there, but it's more just for our local market. We have one in Forest Hill, Louisiana, that deals in supplies for woody ornamental customers. And we have one in Sims, Alabama that does the same thing. There's a lot of large woody ornamental growers in that area, and we service that market. And in New Summerfield, Texas, which is down by Tyler, we have a location there that caters to the bedding plant growers, the people that grow bedding plants, flowers, geraniums, poinsettias, and that type thing. And we have another one of those locations in Houston that deals with the golf courses and the landscapers, and one in Kansas City that pretty well does the same things. But when we would open a location, we would try to send 2 or 3 people out of the Texarkana area to transfer the culture and to teach the BWI way of doing business. But we had opened so many locations, we'd split our staff so many times, we began to run out of people that we could send from the headquarters. So we did go outside the company and hire other people, and we found that was great to develop people and all, but it was a little harder than having people that you could grow homegrown and at your headquarters. And I think if the main attribute that BWI has and was surrounding ourselves with good people. You know, if you have good people and you let them do their job, and there's only so much that Betty and I can do. So we counted on and developed a lot of good people, and we have people that have had many years of tenure in the company, and a lot of people 20, 30 years and longer. So we're very fortunate, in having high-quality people in our company. We have a location also here in Texarkana called Top Notch Marketing. That is, the Top Notch logo was something we got when we bought BWI Russell Heckle, and we had it trademarked, and we use that. But what this company does, it brings in large lots of materials, chemicals, various other hard goods, and we ship it out to mass merchants. We've unbundled our services. The manufacturer does the billing, and we do the warehousing, shipping, and breaking it down into smaller lots. And that is it's a new way of doing business. And we partnered with 3 other companies, and we can, to do that type of business, we can cover the whole United States, you know. So it has worked out great for us, and we also do some of that out of our Florida location also. Well, the BWI logo came about, I'm not sure about the history of it. We've had it for a long, long time. I think at one time we were doing some stationery or envelopes or something, and the BWI logo was born, I guess, or whatever it was. We do have it trademarked, and it's been with us for many, many years. I'd say it's been at least since the 70s. We believe that we should give back something to our community, so Betty and I both have served the community in many capacities. Betty has served on the board for many years of the Woodview Center, which is an Alzheimer's unit that we gave the lead gift that it might be built. It's a 36-bed facility that takes care of people with Alzheimer's. That gives us great satisfaction to be able to be a part of the community and give of our time and our resources to the hospitals and a lot of the various charities in this area.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about our sons, Jim and Robert, who have come into the business. That was not a recent thing. As I told you earlier, they worked in the greenhouse when they were little bitty boys, and they've always worked in our business when they were at home and when they were in the summers, and they've always delivered or loaded food, feed or whatever had to be done. And as they got a little older, they drove a truck and anything that needed to be done. They were, I guess they were the go-to fellas, and so they both went off to college. And I really thought when they got back that they'd say, "Well, Mom and Dad, I think I found something easier to do than this." But that didn't happen. Jim majored in agricultural business, and Robert majored in industrial distribution, and both of those things work beautifully in our type business.
Another story kind of regarding them. When they first started working for the company, they were in the warehouse, and boy, they said, what really makes the company is the warehouse. All these good warehouse people, and this is where all the action is. And I said, yes, that is important. And then when they got to be truck drivers, they said, boy, it's all in the trucking. The truck drivers has the contact with the customers, and they're what makes the thing work. Well, when they went into sales, I heard pretty much the same story. It's the sales guys, boy, if that really makes this company work. Well, when they went from sales to management, they said, well, now we understand it's the whole thing. Dating back to high school and college, and I've always tried to provide leadership to the organizations which I belong to. The Future Farmers of America, when I was in high school, I was an officer in that organization. And then at Oklahoma A&M, I was the president of the agronomy club, and then I was elected to the National Association of Agronomy Association. And then while we've been in business, of course, I've served a lot of various offices, not only in our church or in our Chamber of Commerce, and I have been the national president of the National Lawn and Garden Wholesalers, and I'm the past president of the NASHA, which is the grower side of our business, that association that deals with growers' products, and so I've been very fortunate and been able to serve in several capacities. BWI, I feel like, has a bright future through the influence and help of our outside board of directors. We have developed a strategic plan that should carry us on for the next many years. And of course, that plan calls for continued growth, and we plan to accomplish that with maintaining a good work atmosphere for our employees. We might say the employer of choice, and we want to continue to reward those people who have had long service and are such high caliber, experienced people. And I think if we can accomplish that, the BWI will continue to grow and develop.